morning, Josh. Welcome to Spill the RT, everyone. We are here live once again on YouTube with our first episode of the 40s. So we're in 41 now.
Well, technically, that's our second
Okay, well,
episode.
yeah. Well, we're 41.
Hey, folks.
How are you? How are things,
I'm
Josh?
I'm well. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's we've had a great week in preparation for the Easter break that's happening next week over here. So people are getting ready for their Easter egg. So we might have a bunny or two on next week.
God, I hope not.
Oh, does the Easter bunny come to your house, Josh?
No,
No.
no. It just reminds me of a scene from a Michael Moore film. You want bunnies? You want bunnies for eats or for pets?
For pets, obviously, we love the pets. We love bunnies as pets. We love cute little bunnies hopping around the garden, making all their little droppings everywhere, so that
Mmm,
you know,
good eats.
making it smells. So this week we have quite a few stories, and Josh, where are we heading to? What's happening?
So, this week, ET is up for auction, a 3-hour limit for Roma Museum visits. Meanwhile, a report for the US says free admissions is the way to go. Flannery O'Connor's paintings revealed at long last, and Cirque du Soleil pairs with wine, literally. All that and a brand new guest are up next as we spill the art tea. Welcome to episode 41.
41. What a cool milestone. We are only 9 away from the magic 50, so that's
There you go.
exciting. But yeah, let's get on with today's show and bring on our guest for the day. It is Tess Martin. Come on down. Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Tess. Welcome to the show. Tess, where are you
Thank
calling
you.
in from today?
I am calling in from Rotterdam in the Netherlands.
Oh, fabulous. Very good. Are the tulips
Um,
up there yet?
I don't know. I don't have any tulips. The cherry blossoms out front are in
Yes.
flower, so I
Yeah.
think that's the most important
Nice.
plant-based
Absolutely.
event. Yes.
We have lots of cherry blossoms here in London too at the moment as well. It's gorgeous. It's so sad that it only lasts for a week, but sure, I suppose we just love them even the more so for that reason.
Well, I
Yes.
think that's the whole point of them, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a
Ephemeral art.
momentary. Exactly. You
Yes.
get it or you don't, and if you don't, then wait till next year. Sorry.
Oh, Tess, we will talk about you and your practice and lots of exciting things that are happening with your art world in the coming weeks. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show. But first of all, we are going to go straight into our first story. So, Josh, where are we going to first?
I guess off to the interwebs we go because this isn't in any physical place. ET, this is an actual on camera ET used in the film. ET is up for sale along with other things from the film, sketches, all the kinds of things.
Mm.
But this is expected to go for almost
Oh
$900,000.
my goodness,
How
that's a
about
penny.
that?
900, that's quite a penny. That's quite a penny. It's from Steven Spielberg's film, of course.
Yes,
Um,
but
uh,
apparently what makes this really special is it's animatronic in some way, and
mm,
this is from the estate of the guy who did all the animatronic work on E.T. and other very famous films from the 1980s.
mm.
So what makes this special is it's kind of like one of a kind, never going to be seen again. Get it while it's available. Anyone got a spare $1 million? There you go.
It's definitely one of the better auction things that we've come across from film memorabilia. I think that artist was Carlo Rambaldi, or
Yes,
Rambaldi.
yes,
And
Rambaldi.
yeah, no, it's just I mean, you have those most emotional moments in E.T. where, he was touching the fingers and it was all this, E.T., come home. And it was just fabulous, great movie making. And why not have that right in your very home for just 2 to 3 million? No, 9 million. Did you say 9 million?
900,000.
900,000.
900,000.
Oh, okay, so just short of a million. Exciting
That's, I
stuff.
guess, unless it's worth that to you and it's 10 times the value. I don't
Well,
know. What
this
do you
is
think,
true.
Tess? You got a spare $1 million?
Well, I mean, of course, there's the pulling at the heartstrings thing. The, the
Yes.
the object itself is very shiny. Like, I'm not actually sure it's like what I would want. It's got this kind of fake shiny thing, like
Yes.
that looks a bit funny. But I looked at the auction website, and there's also other things on sale, like things from Blade Runner and other
Yeah.
science fiction films. And I'm surprised actually that the Blade Runner stuff wasn't going for more money. I mean, it was like drawings and sketches, but drawings of cars and
Yeah.
drawings of the facades of the buildings,
Yeah.
and they were like 4 to 6 thousand or something, which I
Oh,
have no idea if that's a lot. Uh, but anything Blade Runner, seems like it would go for a
A lot
ton.
more. Yeah, yeah.
So I was a bit surprised about that.
The stuff
Well,
with Blade Runner, it's the physical objects that people pay a lot of money for,
mm,
like the actual spinner car or the actual gun models that were used,
Hmm.
those kind of things. The
Yeah.
sketch kind of stuff, the production stuff, I think has a certain value to it, but there's also a lot of it that's out there just by the nature of how
Oh,
the production
that's
process
interesting.
goes.
Yeah.
So like there are people that do try to corner the market and like buy everything they can possibly get from a production, but you're
Hmm.
talking about a lot of time and money.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
I just
cool.
hope when stuff like this comes up, I just hope that like some of this money is going to the actual people who
Who
made
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 this
it?
it.
stuff.
None
No,
of
no.
it.
That's what's so sad. It's like, wow, cool. But then it's also like signed
Yeah.
by the art director, but like then because I just finished reading a book about Blade Runner, that there was this other guy that actually did most of the designs.
Yeah.
So you never even know
Yeah.
actually who
It's
made this.
It's so true. It's so true because obviously in film sets or whatever, you have big teams of artists that are under
Yes.
the art director's guidance, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of the craftsmen people and the tradesmen that are making all of these beautiful props, and they don't get any of the props. Ha ha ha.
No, that's the whole point is when you sign on to a production like that, right? You're a
Yeah,
union member, so you're going to get
Yeah.
money
It's a
and
yeah.
team
you're going to be
effort.
able to retire, but
Mm.
you're not getting residuals on anything you make. I wish I had done contracts like that when I was doing graphic design for people, right? I should
Yeah,
have built in something like that because some of the stuff I designed is still going strong. I don't get, I paid my rent at that point, right? That,
yeah,
that was it.
yeah.
That was
And
it.
that's all they wanted to give you at the time, and you're not going to get a penny more.
Yeah,
Sorry
welcome to
about
life
that.
as a creative. If you're
Oh,
going to do that, you're selling your skill, right? And so once
Mm.
it's sold, then you move on.
yeah.
That's it.
Well, we'll move on from that. That was really good. Great
Oof.
story. Great story. Okay, so we are going now to Rome.
To Rome.
And just like it wasn't built in a day, we are now not going to be able to visit a gallery for a day because we are going to be put under time constraint. Tell us more, Josh.
So for those who are speaking American English, every time he says gallery, he means museum, just to be
Yes,
clear.
of
Because there's
course.
galleries in museums. And in
Yes.
the US, we think of galleries as something different. I just want to clarify
That's
here,
okay.
right?
That's okay. Well, we do
So
have quite an American contingent, so yes, bring it on.
So the reason it's important is like galleries very seldom put a time limit unless it's built
Mm,
into an exhibition, right?
yeah.
But a museum is usually you pay, you go in, or if you're like a student and you get a free day pass or whatever. In Rome, they've now decided, now this has been ongoing now for a while. There's an anti-tourism, anti-congestion kind of push. And
Mm.
so one of the things they're trying to do here is 3 hour time limits.
Yeah, it's so short. It's
But
so short.
but why don't they just instead I just answered my own question in my head. Why don't they instead limit the number of entrances, right?
Yeah.
That would also cut down on the crowd.
Mm,
And then everyone could stay for as long as they want, but of course that's less
yeah.
money. That's
They
fewer
tried
tickets.
doing that and it just creates these long queues because then the tourists are just like streaming in lines. It's like Disneyland without anything.
Yeah.
You're just there standing on line
But
outside
even
in the
even
heat.
places that have timed entrance tickets,
They
because
it creates problems to get the tickets apparently. It's
ah,
just there's no
what?
this is being a victim of your own success, right? Like
Be-
literally everybody wants to go and so the
yeah.
problem is everybody can't go. And this is the free market, right? And so people just keep coming.
Mm,
I don't understand that. I mean, like the last time I was at a big museum was like in Paris a few years ago, and it was so crowded. We had
mm,
time tickets, 15-minute
Right.
windows, different lines with different rows for different 15-minute windows. So
mm.
everyone was lined up, ready to go. It was pouring rain, not the museum's fault. And we go in, it's so crowded, we can't see the paintings, and we leave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was like, wow, that was a complete waste of everybody's time. But I was so mystified because I was like, why do they have time ticket? They're just selling too many tickets
Yeah. They
despite them
It's
restrict. Yeah,
being
yeah, I get you.
timed.
it doesn't matter. There's no part of it too is the way people interact in museums has changed very much. And like what I saw over and over again in New York was people not actually paying attention to the art. They wanted to take a
Mm,
selfie with the art behind them.
Mm.
yeah.
And so you had 8 rows deep of people that were facing away from the art, trying to take a picture, right? And never actually looking at the art.
Yeah.
And
You
in
see the
Rome, in Rome, it's even worse
mm,
because like you have like 25 million tourists a year.
yeah,
Like you're
it's
talking
crazy.
about just tremendous numbers of people.
It's in Florence. I haven't been to Rome actually, but I've been to Florence and in Firenze in the Uffizi Gallery. It's the same kind of idea. Like the queues are horrific, like
Mm.
Yeah.
crazy, and when you're there, it's saturated with people. And I suppose it's like if you limit it, then maybe there might be less people if you did restrict the amount of tickets. And then you might actually get closer to the work because there isn't as much of an amount of people. But then, is it better to do that than it is to just let everybody in and then, as you said yourselves, like not be able to spend any time with them because it's so busy you can't even get up close to them. So it's kind of like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
To me,
Mm.
I think you have to make a distinction between the experience and the artwork. And if
Mm,
what you're interested in is the artwork, well, we do have technological workarounds, right? You can
yeah.
have very high definition scans, AR, VR can be made available.
Mm,
Like I think like some of the things that we did during the pandemic to create virtual exhibitions, like all that's possible.
yeah.
So if what you're interested in is the art, you'll have a much better experience that way.
Mm,
It won't be the authenticity of the
no.
experience, right? But if what the experience has become essentially is just another theme park,
Yeah.
then you're not getting what you want anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
The other
like
the
there's no backwards, folks. You're not.
No.
It's not going to return to the age of like 4 billion humans. We're up to 9 billion. Like
Yeah.
that's how it
Mm.
is.
The other side of that as well, and I'm probably slightly side carting. It's that as I do. Is that when you go to the likes of the Musée d'Orsay or the Uffizi or any of the kind of bigger museums, as it were, they are vast. And like if you're going to spend like 3 hours is probably enough time to spend at a gallery anyway, I think, in my opinion, because you're just going to get overwhelmed.
Yes.
But they're so big that you'd actually struggle to get to see everything in that length of time. If for example, you were only going for like a day trip to that particular city and you wanted to get to see as much as you possibly could, you probably couldn't actually get to see everything in that time space.
No, you
It
can't. You think?
also it also causes people to like rush through the museum to see
Yeah.
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
because they
Yeah.
yeah.
feel like they have to see everything, and now they
There's
only
a
have 3 hours.
there's a
So
key insanity there, right? Like
Mm,
if you go to a concert or to a
mm,
movie, right, that there's a certain amount of time, but you're not going to see everything. You're going to have to rewatch. That's the
yeah,
whole part of enjoyment of
yeah,
seeing things or reading things over again and again. And yet, as soon as people think about it as a museum, it's like, well, how much shit can we cram into
yeah,
each hour?
yeah,
mm,
Which is, like I said, it's this Disneyland idea
yeah,
of I want to have so many rides for
mm,
my day pass.
yeah,
It's bizarre to me. And like
mm,
I'm an artist, right? I go to a museum, I could spend 30 minutes with one piece and then feel like I'm done for the day. I
mm,
am overwhelmed now. I'm good to go, right? Because of how much time and energy you put into the act of observation. That
yeah,
actually does take time and energy. But if your goal is just to be, it reminds me of like European vacation, right? Like they're just trying to get through galleries as fast as they
yeah.
possibly go. And that's what's the point of that? It just it's
I do think
antithetical to
I do think as well.
enjoyment of life.
Yeah, I do think as well that people who aren't necessarily artists or are in the arts, often fail to figure that, if we go to an art gallery or a museum, that you should just say, I'm going to do this amount, or I want to have a list, go through the previous or the listing of artists before you go to the visit and kind of identify who it is you want to see. But the problem with that then is what I find in art exhibitions in general, no matter if they're in museums or in contemporary gallery spaces, is the happen upon. When you come to
yeah,
find something
exactly.
and it's just like, I didn't realize that
Unexpected.
artist expect or what existed, or I didn't know they made that piece, or it was kind of like that kind of rare
Well,
thing that you can't plan.
Yeah.
let's just roll to the next story, right? So the
Okay.
next story is there was this report that came out in the US, and what it
Mm,
basically says is if you want to get local people into museums, in particular in the US, this is a big thing,
yeah.
right? Because plenty of tourists will go. It's getting locals in, then you have to make it free.
Yeah.
And if you do, it's not affecting the tourist experience at all. But like there's ways to do this. You can make it like in a place like New York, let the tourists in from 11 o'clock onwards, from 9 to 11 in the mornings. Only people with local IDs get let in, for example, right? There
Mm,
are ways to create
opportunities.
opportunities
Yeah.
that aren't
Snap.
like to compromise is about balancing different things, right? No
Mm,
one's perfectly happy with it, but it
yeah.
solves the problem and lets us move forward. So there are ways to kind of split that in different ways. Now, what this is going to be possible in the US in the next few years, I highly doubt it given the current administration, right?
Yeah.
I
Mm.
mean, they're
Yeah.
literally
Mm,
they're using culture as a war tool of war here.
yeah.
So I highly doubt that this will matter until we change, you know, the next
Leadership.
emperor has no clothes, whatever. But it does bring us to point, right? We've talked about this before because it's not
Mm,
just a US museum thing. If you want locals in places like Rome to be able to experience the culture that is theirs by birthright,
Yeah.
and you don't create opportunities for them to do that,
Yeah.
they're not going
Does
to.
doesn't Rome already have something like that? I don't know, but I would assume that they would have some kind of free system for local citizens, residents.
Not that
Doesn't
I'm
look.
aware
It
of.
doesn't look. Not.
Well,
I'm.
that's too bad.
I don't know for sure, but I mean we've seen over the last number of episodes that there have been so many different types of initiatives from the Italian governments to try and make it more accessible, like with the animals trying to find dog sitters, and like with like the charging things for like, I know, watch back test, there's some crazy shiz that been happening in this show, and like even charging extra for like trying to see just the Trevi fountain. The Italians are having it rough with all of their tourists. And it's not just for the Karens, that decide to come and see all of these silly things, or not silly things, but they are doing their silly things to try and see it. And it's like, can you let the people who actually really want to see it see it?
Well, yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I guess it's an economics thing, right? Like what the city has decided to focus its income on is these attractions. So if that's what they've based their 4-year plan on.
That's what world tourism is, right? It's one of a couple things. It's either White Lotus, rich people going to places so they can quote unquote relax while the locals actually do all the work around them, right? Or it's this idea of like pan global culture. And so people are on planes and traveling around, and 25 million people, that's 500,000 people every week showing up at Rome, right? That's a lot of freaking people.
Yeah, and everyone feels, and rightfully so, that they have the right, or that they should have the right to see these, momentous, monumental, important pieces. And it's true. There is an element of that you butt up against, which is making sure you don't make it exclusive.
Yes.
In an attempt to make it a better experience for everybody.
But every one of these organizations needs some of that exclusivity, because that means higher money, and more money means it pays for access for other people without having that same kind of level of money, right? And so it's this age-old thing of the redistribution of wealth in ways that are about encouraging the public to participate, while at the same time saying to rich people, you're still special too.
It's always
right?
a challenge, though, I think it's always a challenge, though, to be able to identify who those people are and how we can place them into those certain categories. Because there are people, but like the majority of artists are kind of cash poor. They don't have the money to do things, and yet the prices of things are targeted towards those who are. You see that in the property sales at the moment. You see that in the price of just living. So like, regardless of even thinking about like gallery entry or museum entry or theater entry or kind of gig entry, it's just like the prices are all targeted towards the wealthy, because they can afford it. And giving free access to people is it's kind of like, well, who are those people? And
well, we can identify that very easily, but it's a secondary consideration. That's the bottom line. Is it's easier to know that a certain tranche of well-off people will always come, and a certain tranche of well-off people from other countries, we call them tourists, will always come, right? But if you go out the door of any place you can think of, literally just go out and go left where everybody else is going right, you'll start to see locals. You'll start to see where locals live. You'll start to see how locals survive. And those people deserve art in their lives too, right? That's why I give my art away to those people, because beauty doesn't belong just to the rich.
And I think like that, Josh, though, like, non-institutionalized spaces are breaking some of those boundaries down. And things like what you're doing with giving art away, that's also breaking down these barriers and trying to bring in space, bring in people to see art.
That's the only other way you can do it, right? Otherwise, you become part of that system that you're trying to work around. That's the problem. Sorry, go ahead, Todd.
No, I was just going to say, like, it feels like there's no right answer for these big institutions. And then it's like, well, maybe we should just not do the institutions. Maybe we should just do something else altogether that is that doesn't have. But I guess, what if that becomes super successful? Then it becomes ruined also.
But the idea of tourists showing up. But tourists showing up is 1,000 years old at this point, right? Like there are people post-Crusades that wanted to go to the battle places literally 1,000 years ago and see what had been done, right? And so this is part of what it is to be human. And to me, it's more about, as artists, if we're trying to like work against the grain of things, then we have to find alternate ways of doing that.
Yes.
Whether we call ourselves anti-institutional or a-institutional or anti-capitalist or a-capitalist, right? It's just we're problem solvers, and so there are ways to solve problems that aren't just about throwing money at things. Access in the modern world is one way to do that for sure.
Well, this is definitely the debate for the ages and something that
Oof.
we are talking about continually, and I'm sure we'll come back to again. But that tea is built on that story, and for now, we're going to just take a little break, and we'll be back to you after these messages about New Collective. Here we go. New Collective, an arts community collective with art, artists, and art publications with fresh work, news, and updates added weekly to our online collection at newcollective.com. Here you will also find our new journal featuring articles and podcasts, which are also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on us spilling the RT in our weekly roundups every Monday. Yes. So there we go. That is that. And now, Josh, tell everybody what are they to do?
What are they supposed to do, Eamon? Can you do it?
No. I said it to you. I caught you. Come on, Josh. Tell us. What have the audience to do?
You got to like, you got to share, you got to subscribe, you got to smash that button, leave a comment, send to 3 friends, buy some swag.
Buy some swag. Yeah, we love a bit of swag. We've got some swag. Let's remind them about what swag we've got. We've got some fun things here. We've got like some t-shirts and hats and tote bags and mugs and all fabulous. I went to the effort of making them. Could somebody please buy one?
Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
It's like we're at the zoo. More on that later. Not the zoo, but somewhere else. Okay, so we're moving into our next story now. Josh, what's happening?
So off we go to Georgia. Flannery O'Connor is a very famous American writer. She was a short story writer. Some of her stuff truly is some of the most moving short stories I've ever read, particularly in the context of the South and racism and like the New South trying to emerge from its past. She was writing at a very particular moment in the 1940s and 50s. Nonetheless, she also was an artist, as often is the case, right? People are multi-creative. But this stuff, I don't know if you have a picture of it, it was tucked away in her attic. Like an attic of a place, like 70 of these works that have just sat around for like 75 years. And now they have finally come to light. And they're very impressionistic. It's very much, I would say, like clearly someone who has artistic talent and who had a particular viewpoint, not dissimilar from the way she was as a writer, that you can tell her paintings look cohesively as a whole together.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of interesting. Again, for people that are on the American side of the Atlantic, I think most of us only know Flannery O'Connor as a writer, and particularly as a writer of the South.
I'm the same. I only knew her as a writer, and I just think it's a real testament to the multidisciplinary at work here, and I think it's great to see like that, you know, how one can inform the other, because when you do look at the paintings, you can kind of almost feel her writing too, which I think is just really great. What do you think, Tess? Are you familiar with Flannery O'Connor's work?
Well, I'm not enough, I have to admit. So maybe I'll go and read some of her stories after this. But what I thought was the most interesting part of the article was that the works may have been not shown to the public by whoever was managing her estate, because they felt it would detract from her
writing
success or fame as a writer, which I guess if you're talking, when did she die? In the 70s, 80s?
Yeah, 70s.
I guess in the 70s, I can understand how that may have been a concern, you know, at the time, and from a marketing point of view, like, oh no, we can't confuse people. She was a writer. But I think what's such a shame is that the exhibition that they are setting up now seems to be really, I mean, I don't know, I haven't been, maybe there's more than what the article showed in the pictures from the article, but it seems to be very much like about the paintings. Whereas like what Eamon said is so much more interesting, the fact that she was making these paintings at the same time that she was writing her famous short stories. And like, that is like so unique. I mean, there's plenty of people who make paintings and there's plenty of people who write short stories, but it's much more interesting to see the work of someone who's doing both. And like, why does someone have to be one or the other? You know, like
Absolutely.
we're much more
Oh,
open to
I
that
totally
now.
agree with that. And I
Yeah.
love how the cross dynamic between different medias can inform your work, and how you can or at the very least, when we take inspiration from other practices that we involve ourselves in, and how they can kind of inform each other. I think that's magical, and how that can kind of come to life.
The issue of being a multidisciplinarian is a fairly recent one, right? And I think that you have to remember, even until the 1980s, right, because of the idea of like the artist as brand, and that
Mm,
it was important to have be unitary. I
yeah,
That was the whole point of like Cy Twombly, don't get discovered, stay undiscovered as long as possible. Because if they find you and you're successful, you can't go off brand.
yeah,
And
Mm,
so if your brand is Flannery O'Connor, the writer, and that's what's allowed, right? It could
yeah.
have been Flannery O'Connor, the painter, but then the writing would
mhm,
never have been paid attention to until long after she's gone. But I think what happens is it's a kind of evolutionary step process. You go from the writer to now the artist to now a combination of both, right? And so
Yeah.
the next show, the next retrospective that's done, whenever that will be in 5 or 10 years, will bring those two things together
mm,
because the
Mm,
curator will have those things available then to
yeah,
bring together.
that's a good point. Yeah.
mm,
And people will be more used to the idea of
Yeah.
yeah.
both disciplines
Yeah.
and yeah.
But I think it's just that like the gig economy that all of us experience in the modern world, and the idea that people work multiple jobs, that multiple members of a household are
Yeah.
working at the same time, that's all relatively recent, right? And I think that
Mm,
plays into this idea that it's okay to be a multidisciplinarian today.
yeah.
We
Mm,
expect creatives to be able to survive by being able to move around and
Mm,
go from different areas in ways that simply not just weren't allowed, but weren't expected in the past. You didn't need to be a DJ and an artist and a writer
mm,
but in the
food
modern world,
delivery
that's
guy.
exactly how you maintain your brand once you
yeah.
reach a certain
Mm,
level.
But I suppose it bears the problem, maybe. Potentially, it's not a problem, but it is a problem sometimes, where where people often ask, "What is it that you do?" And then when you've got that email signature of the multi hyphenate, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
oh dear, am I really diluting myself here? But really, I think there's often, if you want to kind of categorize it as almost like what your concept is, or what your values are, what your beliefs are, and how they
Yeah.
are delivered through potentially the platforms or the disciplines or the media that you use to create or represent those concepts, is potentially a better way to look at it. I think we're very much um, channelized, if that's a word. Is that a word?
Mhm.
Or kind of, we are kind of conditioned, probably a better word, by people, by the world, in how we need to give ourselves a role as we are a writer, we are
Yeah.
a painter, we are a doctor, we are a scientist. I suppose I don't want an artist opening me up, giving me brain surgery, but at the same time, you kind of still want to. I don't know. I find it's a challenge for me.
mm,
It, I always admire people who can single stream themselves like that. Like I
Mm,
only do this one thing, and like I guess that idea of like put in 40,000 hours or
yeah,
whatever, and like this is what I do.
yeah,
I personally get bored to tears by something like that.
yeah.
And I aim for the good, not the great. And I'd rather be
Mm,
good at a whole bunch of different things
mm.
than great at one thing, just
mm,
because I personally don't find it very interesting to
mm,
spend all that much time on any one
yeah.
thing. It's like whatever works for people. I'm not here to tell them how they should
I
live,
think a
right?
potential difficulty is that you'll have spent 40,000 hours focusing entirely on mastering that thing. And
Yeah.
then once you have mastered it, it's kind of, it gets stale, doesn't it? And it's kind of like, well, what do I do now?
Well, but again, the people who ascribe to that other philosophy would say, well, no, there's a certain beauty in that that comes out of that repetition and
Yeah.
achieving a certain kind of perfection in process and
Mm,
emotion. And like I'm not like I say, I'm not here to tell anyone how they should be. I know that for me personally, I can't do that. I'm
yeah.
very good at a lot of things, but I'm never intended to try to be like the best of the best at anything
Mm,
because I just don't want to put that time and energy into
yeah.
only one thing.
Yeah. Tess,
Yeah,
how
I
would you
guess I get
categorize your work?
well, yeah, it's an interesting conversation. It's I'm a bit of a ping ponger. So
Yeah.
like I was doing paintings and installations and stuff, and then I really focused on like experimental animation for a long time, and now I'm expanding again to
Right.
include
Lots of,
video work
yeah, yeah.
inside
Yeah.
installations and stuff.
And it doesn't need to
Um,
be either or, does it?
No.
No, I mean, it's also good to know your strengths, I suppose. Like, creative writing, for example, is not going to be my destiny, and I'm totally fine with that. Or like music, God forbid. But there's some people who can genuinely do a lot of things,
Yeah.
Yes.
and I really admire them. Like, I have one friend who has a day job that is very scientific,
Mm.
and he's very excellent at it. But then on the side, he does theater.
Mhm.
And it's obviously at some point in his life he made a choice, right? Which would be the main thing from which he earns money, and which is,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
other thing. But he's really good at both. So it's really kind of
That's cool.
fascinating. And it kind of makes you wonder what Flannery O'Connor would have made had she lived, because she died so young. She
Mm.
died at
That's
like
true.
39 or something,
39.
like
Yeah.
crazy. So that's also interesting. Like,
Yeah.
what would have happened, 30 years later? Would her
Yes.
paintings and her writing somehow
I,
have
I as well.
come
I
together?
think we've seen some really great examples through even just through the doing this podcast of how cross disciplines, even in different industries, like between science and art, and as you mentioned there,
Yeah.
and science and theater, and how they can totally inform each other. I just think I think it's really
Hmm.
great.
Yeah. Well, we
Cool.
often talk about globalization in terms of
Yeah.
like money, right? And trade. But to me, ideas are much more important than any of that, because
Mm.
ideas will outlive any of that.
Yeah.
And the fact that we are allowing ourselves to have those kind of cross pollinations, not just to allow it to happen, to expect it to happen.
Yeah.
Right. To me, that's
Hmm.
the exciting part of this. And I'm not pro technocracy. I'm not anti technocracy. I'm just kind of like a technocracy because I care about people. And so anything else that's just a tool that allows us to connect, that's
Mm.
not a bad thing from where I stand. But again, I'm interested in the future, not the past.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Mm.
That's cool. Well, I think
speaking of.
we'll put a little pin in that. Again, it's a conversation that comes up quite a bit and is very worth discussing. But
Yeah.
we're going to go now to the circus, as I promised.
I guess what do you want to say? Because they're now it's a world phenomenon, right? Cirque du Soleil, everybody
Yeah.
knows they originally are Canadian. This is like human circus as opposed to
Mm.
circus with animals.
Yeah.
And guess what? They now are partnering with Stag's Leap Winery on their own special Cirque du Soleil wine.
Very cool. So, Josh, you need to inform us a bit more about what's going on here.
So what this comes down to is, right, even something like Cirque du Soleil, in order to like substantiate their brand and keep it
Mm.
going, has to find ways to co-brand themselves in different ways. Right. It's literally what we're just talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just
Mm.
individual creatives that find the need to do this. It's
Mm.
literally Cirque du Soleil is like a corporation at this point, right? They have multiple traveling troops, they have multiple shows, they're in multiple physical locations, like as permanent installations. Like, so they're all around the place. Even they, in order to keep that hot air blowing through their
Mm.
balloon, have to bring in these kinds of collaborative experiences at the
Mm.
high end. I worked Stag Leap's vineyards. This is some of the most expensive land in the entire universe,
Wow.
right? And
Is it
so,
expensive wine?
oh yeah, they're talking hundreds of dollars per bottle. Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, I
I
A
mean,
suppose.
case,
Oh. Mhm.
a case would be $2,000 to $3,000 at a minimum. Yeah,
yeah, I'm in two minds, I guess. Like, on the one hand, I'm like, well, whatever you need to do to make it work, right? Giant circus conglomerate.
right.
But then on the other hand, I'm like, wow, but then it's okay. It's like
But
another very expensive thing.
Cirque du Soleil is one of the largest employers of creatives, though, that
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you really want to talk about performative troops that also use graphic designers, writers, creatives,
Mm.
music, they pull hundreds and hundreds of creatives into each of
I
their
bet they
shows.
do, and they're entirely
And so,
successful.
to me,
Mm.
it's this idea we're always talking about, well, how do creatives survive in the modern world? Right.
Mm.
And so, one of the ways you survive is you make your deal with the devil in terms of that tranche of society that
Yeah.
is able to spend $200 on a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
don't have to
But
like it, but
it's
that's part of what many of us deal with.
I
Mm.
think as well the cost of going to a Cirque du Soleil is humongous in America,
Yeah.
a million times more than what it is in the UK or across Europe or even in Australia, but it's so expensive, and I
Yeah.
think those who are going to it could afford that bottle of wine, and I think
Mm.
it's not new to sell wine at a circus. That's not a new thing. It's like to sell a glass of wine at a theater event or a circus event or any sort of event. It's not new, but to see that we're selling something at this its price is just crazy.
Yeah.
And
I
you can
wonder
guarantee that that bottle of wine, the glass, per the glass, it would be by the glass, and it would be horrifically expensive.
Yeah, I wonder, just like the conversation we were having about museums, if Cirque du Soleil has any discounted rates for like local people.
Oh, they have all kinds of things they do because they're so big, right? They
Yeah.
can manage to have multiple streams, and then so they're able to do those kinds of things. I've seen
I
them
hope
offer
so.
tickets for students. I've seen them offer various kinds of raffles and things
Yeah.
to raise money for local communities. Because when they come in and they set up on the traveling part of this, they really do take over a part of a town in order to make it happen. It's like a brand new city that springs up to support one of these shows.
Yeah.
It's a lot of creatives in one place, which is really impressive on one hand. On the other hand, it's also why they have a permanent installation in Vegas, right? Because it's also about a certain kind of performativity for a certain
Yeah.
kind of traveler who has certain kinds of
Yeah.
expectation.
It's spectacle as well. You
That's
know, they just
oh
love the
yeah.
spec. Yeah, it's just spectacle.
But when Guy Debord was talking about the Society of Spectacle back in the 1960s, the idea was that it was like popular mass communications, right? And
Yeah.
so spectacle now also has a cost to it. The experience comes at a dear price.
Yeah.
And so that's like when I went to Cirque du Soleil now, probably 25 years ago now, those were gifted tickets to me because I couldn't afford the tickets then.
No.
In today's world, I guarantee you I couldn't afford the kind of
No.
package that they put together for
It's so
people.
interesting because traditionally wasn't the circus like an affordable
Yes.
entertainment,
Yeah.
you know? It was like
Right.
for the peasants and for everybody.
But that's also why it was using animals, because animals were seen as right beasts of
Like
burden, and so
disposable.
yeah, 100%. And so part of what makes Cirque du Soleil special when they first came out, now what 40 years ago, was that it's a human circus. It's not reliant on
On animals. Yeah.
pain and cruelty and all those kinds of
Yeah.
things, which is
Yeah.
that's actually what I was most impressed about. It wasn't like the music and the story. It was like, oh, this is something that we call a circus that doesn't involve harming other people or other creatures along
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Oh,
that's
yeah,
what
and
I found
these
most impressive.
performers are like amazing. I
Oh,
mean,
Yes.
they're
the
beyond
stuff they can
talented.
do.
Yeah,
It's
it's crazy.
Yeah.
They-
Fantastic for
another thing I
psychedelics.
won't be doing
Yes.
as a side.
It's a fan. If you're on psychedelics, it's a fantastic experience, 100%.
It's
But
coming
again,
right at me. It's coming right at me.
yeah.
Yes,
But
it is.
it's the equivalent of going to a very high-end restaurant at this point,
Yeah.
right? Like all of these things, because that tranche is willing to pay for it, it pulls everything upwards in terms of pricing. And limits, right? Cirque du
Yeah.
Soleil doesn't get crowded, it doesn't get overloaded because it's very expensive to get those seats.
Yeah. And it's been running so concurrently, or so constantly, that they know they'll get their overheads paid and,
Yes.
and more, and they're able to manage it, and it's so well engineered across the
Yeah.
board. So yeah.
Yeah, if you want to see creatives in action, pulling shit off and making money along the way,
Yeah.
Cirque du Soleil is as good as it gets, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're making their money because of a certain kind of person who's willing to pay.
They are. Well, that tea is spilled, and now we are going to talk to Tess about your work, about what's happening in your world. So, firstly, maybe tell us just a little bit about you and what you're coming from, and where your experience has grown and developed.
Yeah, so my name is Tess Martin. I'm an artist in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. I do film and animation. I have a fine art background, and kind of found myself in the experimental animation world and have been making experimental short films for many years, using frame by frame techniques, often with paper or sand or some kind of physical material. And I've, over the past 3 or 4 years, like I mentioned earlier, broadened out again to include also installations. So often now there'll be an installation version, sometimes developed first, that informs the single channel video version, and vice versa. So I end up making kind of different versions concurrently, with the hope of exposing them in different
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
Talk about multitasking, right? So the single channel short film version of my most recent short film, which is called How Now House, which is a 13-minute experimental documentary about, thank you, putting up the still, about a house through time. So thinking of the house as a time container and how we like to think that we have an effect on the places in which we live.
Brilliant. We have a little teaser of that,
Oh,
so
yes. Yeah,
let's roll that for a second.
Time is just any way of counting the change of something. You look at something changing. Day, night, day, night, day, night, you count. And that is time. Time is counting change.
It doesn't make our time here any less meaningful for us.
So that is starting its festival run. It is still going around festivals, so obviously it depends where you are if you can catch it at a festival. Those of you in mid-northern England should keep an eye out because there will be a screening soon, but I can't say anything more about it right now. And then there's going to be an installation in Rotterdam in June. So basically, keep an eye on my socials if you're interested.
Well,
And then
that's
everything
a
will be
good
on
trigger
there.
point. Tell us, how do we find out all of that information? Where would we follow you?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is Tess Martin Art. Tess Martin Art. That is also the URL of my website.
Great.
Also the Blue Sky handle for those who are trying to get off Instagram. I keep waiting for Blue Sky to like become.
You're not the first person to mention Blue Sky though. So I think I'm the only one in this room here that is not on Blue Sky. So I need to get on that too. Cool.
Yeah,
We have
it's
some
an option.
we have some stills. So this is another still from the teaser, so you can see this. Do you want to kind of maybe talk to us a little bit about this?
Sure. So it's a project that started to become an idea when I realized I had been living in the same shared house for 10 years.
Mm.
And I grew up moving around the world. So for me, this is really unusual. And I started to think about what it means to be part of a string of people who've lived in the same house. And I started doing research into the house and found all the previous residents up to a privacy barrier that exists here in the Netherlands. So I started researching these historical residents and interviewing my old housemates and started to think about our experience of time and the theories around time. And I really got into the work of Carlo Rovelli, who's a theoretical physicist, who's published a couple popular books about how our brains might have more to do with our perception of time than we think. Anyway, it all kind of came together in this experimental piece that involves playing cards on a card game in a living room, and we kind of see actions repeated over and over, and it's a lot about repetition and experience of time.
And can
This
I
is
ask,
oh, go ahead.
how did you end up in Rotterdam as the place where you've spent so much time?
Yeah, so the short version is that I lived here for part of high school when I was a teenager, not in Rotterdam, but in the Netherlands. And then when it came time for me to do a master's program, I decided I wanted to do it in Europe, where not not unrelated, I didn't have a legal way of living here at the time. So I thought, okay, I'll be a student visa, great. And so I did a master's program, and then just FYI, the Netherlands has a special visa for American freelancers. So if you are US American and an artist, as in you don't have like an employer, the Netherlands is one of the easier countries in Europe to move to because they have this special visa, which is completely bizarre. And there's no reason it should exist, but it exists. So I knew that. So anyway, I was like, cool, I'll do this master's program. And I did end up being able to stay after applying for this visa. And I've been in Rotterdam for like 11 years.
Interesting.
Now, Josh, you might end up in Rotterdam next.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I find the idea of rootedness, what you're talking about, right? Like the way in
Mhm.
which space and people inform each other. And in a historical city like Rotterdam, right, it not just affords you the opportunity to live in a share house, but a house that has been shared by people for
Mhm.
many generations. That's really interesting.
Yes, yeah, that's what made it interesting, I think, is because of course I was in this shared house with three other adults, so it was a rental. But actually, it turns out the house has basically, as far as I know, been a rental since it was built in
Mm,
1925. So there's a lot of previous residents. Unlike
yeah.
the house where I live now, where there's really only like a couple, even though it's almost 100 years old, but it's a small residence, so it's just
Mm.
always been kind of a single family home. Yeah, so this that's on the screen now is a 2-minute film, which is online. So if you want to watch something in full, you can find this on my
Great.
website, and it's
We'll
2
put the
minutes.
link into the video description as
Yes.
well. So do check that out. Amazing, great. Oh my goodness, and we have lots of things coming up from you in the next coming weeks, don't we? That you have the release of your film. So when is that? What date is that coming out?
Well, so it's going around festivals now. So it's
Okay,
actually this weekend having its world premiere at a festival in Ohio.
okay.
And there'll be another festival in June, and one in Italy in July. And then it'll be in festivals for a while. But the installation will be in Rotterdam on June 7th, I believe, is the opening of the
Amazing.
installation. And it'll
And
be on
all
for a
that
month.
information is on your website, yes?
Yes.
At
Excellent.
tessmartinart.com. So check
Yes.
it out, follow Tess, and make sure you keep in touch with her through her Instagram and her socials and on Blue Sky and on her website. And if you do get a chance and you are near those screenings, do pop in and have a look and support Tess in her art making. So do get on that, and that's really exciting. You've got lots coming up, and you've been very busy, so it's really exciting to see someone doing really well. So congratulations, you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yay.
Good for you.
Yay. And thank you for coming onto the show today. We've been really delighted to have you on and to speak
Thank you
about
for
your
having
work.
me. This was super fun.
Oh,
We're
good.
good
Great.
people. We're
We're
good
good. We're
people.
good people.
You're
We're
good
good people.
people.
We
Yes.
try. We try to
Good
inform.
eggs.
And with that, Josh, please give our audience members just one more reminder of what it is they have to do before we sign off.
Smash that button, like, share, subscribe, comment, send to 3 friends, buy some
Yes.
swag.
Ding, ding, ding. Buy some swag and do subscribe. And if you'd like to come on to speak with us as a guest and you are an artist or, in fact, just interested in art, full stop, do get in touch with us at hello@newacollective.com. And we would be absolutely delighted to have you on to punch up on some of the stories that we have
See?
every week in our weekly roundups.
Tessa's smiling. She's happy. You can be a guest too and smile.
You
See?
can be a guest too. You can be a guest too. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, folks. But until next week, keep spilling that tea and we will see you soon. Bye.